Battlefield 6 is between a rock and a hard place at the moment. I think there's going to be a lot of heated opinions on this topic, so I want to make clear before we even start unpacking it that I know the expectations of players are high for live service games. I know that developers are doing what they can to meet those expectations, and I know that the business and development realities of it all make it very hard for those things to match up. It's been interesting to watch the community's feeling towards Battlefield 6 develop since the game's release back in October of 2025. At launch, there was considerable excitement around the game. Videos and articles around the net said Battlefield was back, people were enjoying the game, and then after a few weeks, the excitement was over and people were clamoring for new content. Look, I'm not gonna lie and say I didn't have a similar reaction. I played Battlefield 6 at launch with my friends, we were really enjoying it, and then the first season dropped and we kinda just fell off the game a lot faster than I had expected us to. The first 2 maps that were released weren't all that fun to play, a sentiment shared across the Battlefield community at large. I hate everything about that.
Why?
The poor reception of the new maps was coupled with outrageously priced skins in the game, poor progression systems, and the community generally feeling a lack of being heard despite constantly being told otherwise by the Battlefield team. Of course, we can't forget that nearly every Battlefield since Battlefield 3 has had a very rough launch. EA and DICE had to spend a lot of time and money on pretty much every installment in the series to get it to a place that customers deserved. Even with all the testing that Battlefield 6 claimed to have had, it still launched with missing features players expect from the franchise and technical issues that became more apparent over time. Season 2 is now just on the horizon and will be introducing 2 new maps and a number of requested fixes, including updates to progression for the Battle Pass and normal progression. The first new map will be dropping at the start of the season, and the other will drop later on. So far, the community has not responded well to what's coming in this new season, with many regular Battlefield content creators commenting that it's just not enough new content to satisfy players. For comparison's sake, Battlefield 4 had 4 DLC packs that were each released approximately 4 months apart, and came with 4 maps and a number of different weapons. These were also paid expansions and not tied to a seasonal model structure, a model that went away because people didn't like the community being split up by paid expansions. There's never really been a perfect solution to meeting the content demands of players. We've had paid expansions, seasonal passes, and now for the most part, we've moved to free content updates with optional battle passes tied to cosmetics and other rewards to keep players engaged with games. That system no longer seems to be really working though, as players expect more than just another line of cosmetics to earn or pay for. A big problem with the live service model, and wanting players to stick to your game, and only your game, is that the appetite for all the new content is completely unsustainable. What used to be quarterly updates turned into monthly updates and now weekly updates to satiate the demands of these games and keep people engaged at all hours of the day. I've personally felt this as someone who plays some of these games. You play what's available, and then you're inevitably waiting for the next content drop. It's a weird feeling to have grown up with games like the original Call of Duty Modern Warfare series, Halo, and Gears of War, where we didn't have this seasonal model. We got a few map packs, played for a few years, and then moved on to the next game in the series. It really seems like people's attention spans for live service games, mine included, have become egregiously short. And I'm not putting the blame on the consumer for this. This is due to game studios and publishers creating the unrealistic expectation that new content can be dropped at a pace that, for almost every live service game, seems to exceed the actual capabilities of the developers. That, and all the events that they're constantly putting on to create a sense of fear missing out within their communities. Clearly, it's not working for Battlefield 6 though, as the maps and new gear aren't at the quality or quantity expected of the franchise. These are supposed to be big and complex maps for players to fight for control over, and I agree with many of the criticisms that they don't have that true Battlefield feel to them. Evident by the fact that Battlefield Studios has to keep returning to previous maps in the series to meet those expectations. I would say EA and Battlefield Studios are focusing on quality over quantity, but when previous games were able to deliver paid-for map packs that included more content, and with a smaller development team at that, something isn't adding up here considering the insane amount of resources that EA has poured into the franchise. Remember when EA said they wanted 100 million people on Battlefield 6? I can only speculate about what's going on at Battlefield Studios that's not allowing them to be at the top of their game for the live service model. but I suspect that by tying themselves to a relatively strict roadmap at such a quick pace, they're not giving themselves enough time to really test, fix, and produce the amount of content that players are expecting. This isn't an issue contained to AAA studios either. Any team trying to do the live service gambit is contributing to this unsustainability. Highguard is the most recent big live service free-to-play launch, and it has failed to keep the attention of people who were initially interested in it. The development team has been responding to feedback quickly, even adding in a new 5v5 mode just 4 days after launch. But that wasn't enough. The game launched with a stacked roadmap that basically promises significant update for every month of 2025. Most of it's small stuff like a new gadget, weapon mod, or a loot item, but they're also promising new characters, and a new character for a hero shooter is a significant update as it changes the meta of these games, and launching a new one every 2 months seems like it would be a constant headache for the developers to keep a game like Highguard balanced. The first part of the second episode of Highguard released just 2 weeks after the game launched, and we should be getting the second part of that update on the 20th of February if their roadmap holds at its current pace. I personally can't imagine being under the constant pressure fighting to maintain a player base of that scale. I'm exhausted just thinking about working under those conditions. It's not even just multiplayer games in this situation, as more and more developers are launching their games right alongside a roadmap of updates to come. At this point, it's just a constant drip feed of content that people run through and then immediately ask for more. If the devs can't keep up, then they're put down for it, or worse, lose their jobs. As I was writing this episode, news broke that the Highguard development team has almost entirely been laid off following the launch of the game just a few weeks ago. It's almost like there's a repeatable pattern to all but the most successful live service titles. To try and keep up, content is often rushed out the door, it doesn't meet players' expectations, and then the studio has to go back, fix all the problems of the previous content, and at the same time keep working on the new content. Circling back, the second season of Battlefield 6 was already supposed to be out by now, but was delayed, presumably for further polishing, and now people are upset that they're not getting more content because of the delay. I'm not defending the corporation, the developers, or even the players here. It's all just a complete mess of expectations from every corner, in my opinion. Publishers and studios overpromise and underdeliver, players' attention spans have become far too short because of that live service model, and we're stuck in a cycle of broken promises, disappointment, and eventual burnout of both devs and players. The entire industry needs to take a step back and slow things down a bit. Making games takes time, and the more we try to make it an impossibly efficient production line to constantly whet people's appetites, the problem is only going to keep expanding. Live service games are the industry's fast food, and we all know what happens when you eat too much of that.